Welcome, dreamer. Tonight, you'll drift to a quiet harbor where the water glows like stars and a lantern boat has been waiting just for you. In this hush of memory and light, you'll discover a love that never stopped waiting for you to come home. So get comfortable, close your eyes, and let the lanterns guide you to rest. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share in the comments where you're listening from. We'd love to hear from you. Sometimes you wake in a place you've never seen but know by heart. You open your eyes to the soft sound of water brushing wood, a gentle rhythm, as if the whole world is breathing around you. The air smells of salt and night-blooming flowers, heavy and sweet, carrying a faint chill that curls around your bare arms. Before you even look down, you know you are standing at the edge of a wooden pier, its boards smooth and cool beneath your feet. Below, the water glows faintly, not quite gold, not quite silver, but something softer, warmer, as if moonlight and memory have woven together and sunk into the harbor itself. All around you, tiny lanterns drift on the surface, their light spilling across the dark water like quiet stars. Thousands of them. Some bob near the pilings, others float farther away, their glimmers softening as the distance deepens. They sway lazily, as though caught in a slow and invisible current that you cannot see but somehow feel in your chest. It is silent but not lonely. The air is full of presence. You don't remember how you got here. You search for a memory, a street, a station, even a door, but there is nothing before this. Only this pier, only this harbor, only you and the hush of night. And then you see the boat. It isn't one of the graceful, distant ships anchored in the deeper waters. Those are grand, their sails folded, their lanterns elaborate and bright. No, this boat is smaller, humbler, moored just a few steps down the pier. It rocks very gently on the water, as though nodding to you. You know the moment your eyes meet it that it's waiting for you. It is made of dark, worn wood, its edges softened by time, but along the railing and canopy silk lanterns are strung, glowing softly cream and pale rose, with tiny tassels that sway in the breeze. A little canopy of sheer fabric hangs over the middle of the boat like a curtain, catching the light of the lanterns and giving the air around it a hazy, golden sheen. And at the bow, leaning one hand casually on the railing, is a man. He's tall enough to feel substantial even from here, though he moves with a quiet stillness that makes him almost part of the scene, as though he belongs to the boat just as much as the lanterns do. His long coat flutters faintly in the breeze, the hem grazing the deck, and his dark hair catches what little moonlight dares to fall between the clouds. He isn't watching the water. He's watching you. You stop breathing without meaning to. The moment his eyes meet yours, something inside you tenses, then softens, as if you've just stepped into warm water after a long, cold walk. His gaze is steady but not sharp, not demanding. There is no question in it, no impatience. Only a quiet kind of knowing, as though he has been waiting a long time and is entirely willing to wait longer, if you need. You realize you've frozen halfway down the pier, your hand resting on a post, your toes curling slightly over the edge of the plank. He doesn't call out to you, he doesn't move to beckon you closer. He only stands there, his weight balanced easily against the rail, his head tilted faintly watching you as though this is the moment he has been waiting for. And you can feel it, that quiet certainty thrumming in the air between you like the faint echo of music, so soft you almost think you've imagined it. You don't know what will happen if you step onto that boat. You don't even know your own name here. But you know with strange and absolute clarity that this boat, in this harbor, in this impossible dream of a night, this boat is yours. And he is too. The thought startles you, and you feel heat rise faintly in your cheeks, even as the breeze cools your skin. For a moment longer you stand still, letting your eyes wander, taking in the little details you hadn't noticed at first. The lanterns on his boat are painted with faint brushstrokes, blossoms, birds, a scattering of tiny stars you hadn't seen until just now. The water around it seems calmer than elsewhere, as if even the current dares not disturb this waiting. You notice there are no oars, no sail, and yet you know it will move. You take one step forward, then another. The wood beneath your feet groans softly, but the sound is muffled, swallowed almost immediately by the thick, fragrant night air. You keep your eyes on him, though your gaze flickers down now and then to watch the lanterns gliding beneath the pier, little rivers of light weaving between the pilings. And he watches you, not moving. It strikes you suddenly that you are not afraid. Your bare feet reach the final plank of the pier, where the wood darkens and the water laps high enough to dampen the edge. There's a coil of rope resting on the dock, its loose end tied to a post, the other end knotted to the boat. You hesitate here, just a breath, and then you kneel, fingers brushing the thick rope, feeling how it's rough with salt and use. Slowly, you loosen the knot from the post. The rope snakes into the water with a faint splash, and the boat drifts the smallest distance closer to the pier, as though it, too, was holding its breath all this time. You stand again, and he finally straightens from his easy lean, adjusting the lapels of his coat with a small, quiet motion. For the first time, you hear his voice. "Come," he says. It's low, warm, and somehow familiar. Not a command, not even quite a request. More like an acknowledgement of something you already decided. You step down. The little boat rocks softly as your feet meet the deck, but he extends a hand steady and sure, and you take it without thinking. The wood beneath you sighs, settling under your weight, and the lanterns above sway slightly as the boat drifts half a foot away from the pier, untethered now. Still holding your hand, he leads you to the center of the boat, just under the sheer canopy where the air feels warmer, softer, kissed by the glow of the lanterns. Only when you are seated on the small cushioned bench, the kind that feels like it remembers 1,000 other evenings, does he let go. You watch as he moves toward the stern, his hand brushing one of the lanterns as he passes, making it swing faintly. You notice again no oars, no sail, yet the boat begins to move, so gently you almost don't realize at first. The pier behind you recedes. The harbor stretches out into quiet darkness. The stars overhead seem fewer than those on the water. You glance at him, but his gaze is turned outward now, watching the path ahead as the lanterns part before the boat. You think to ask him who he is, why he was waiting for you, but the words don't come, and strangely, they don't need to. For now, it is enough to sit here under the hush of the canopy, the light from the lanterns warming your face, the scent of salt and flowers curling around you like a blanket. You rest your hands in your lap, feeling the faint sway of the boat, listening to the tiny ripples whisper against the hull. He glances over his shoulder once, his dark eyes catching yours just long enough for you to feel that quiet certainty again, that sense of belonging you don't quite understand. And then he turns back to the water, guiding the boat deeper into the shimmering dark. And you let yourself sink into the hush of it, the warmth of the lanterns, the soft breath of the night, feeling, for the first time in longer than you can remember, as though you are exactly where you are meant to be, exactly with who you were meant to find, even if you don't know his name. Not yet. The boat glides onward, deeper into the quiet dark, and the pier with its posts and ropes, and the faint shadow of the world you came from, fades into a soft blur behind you. For a long time, the only sound is the hush of water against wood and the faint creak of the lanterns above. You sit beneath the canopy, your hands resting lightly in your lap, your gaze drawn to the shimmering path ahead. The water glows faintly under the boat as though it remembers the moon. Lanterns float past on either side, drifting lazily, their light warm and low. Some bear painted blossoms that spill their petals across the surface of the water as they pass. Others are plain, their paper thin and translucent, barely holding the glow inside them. You catch yourself staring at one lantern for so long that it feels like it stares back, a tiny red circle painted on its surface, like an eye winking as it spins away. When you finally lift your gaze again, you realize he's watching you. He stands at the stern, one hand on the railing, his long coat caught faintly in the breeze. His eyes dark, but gentle, hold yours for a beat longer than you expect. Then he speaks. "This part is easier if you breathe," he says softly, his voice carrying easily across the hush. You blink at him, startled. He smiles faintly, not quite teasing, not quite serious, and tilts his head. "You haven't exhaled since you sat down," he adds. He's right. You let out a slow, unsteady breath and feel your shoulders sink a little lower, your spine soften against the cushion. The air seems to ease around you, as though the whole harbor approves. "That's better," he murmurs, and his gaze turns back to the water. You watch him in profile now, the way his hair falls just over his brow, the subtle curve of his mouth, the quiet, unhurried way he stands. There is nothing impatient about him. No need to fill the silence. No need to explain himself. You sit for a while, content just to watch the lanterns slide past. One drifts so close to the boat that you lean forward instinctively, reaching out your fingertips, brushing the edge of the water just as the lantern glides by. The paper is warm under your touch, impossibly warm for something that has floated so long. And though you never quite grip it, you feel its presence slip under your palm before it continues on its way, leaving a faint trail of light on the water behind it. "Careful," his voice says quietly. You look up to find his eyes on you again, softer now. "Some of them will follow you home if you hold them too long," he says. You furrow your brow faintly, glancing back at the lantern now drifting away. "What happens if they do?" you ask. He only shakes his head once, faintly, a quiet smile flickering at the corner of his mouth. "That depends what you're carrying," he replies. You're not sure what to make of that, but you don't press. The boat continues on, slipping deeper into the harbor, where the lanterns grow denser and brighter. Now they float so thick that the water between them is almost hidden, a river of stars so close you could almost believe you're sailing across the sky. Somewhere far to your right, you catch sight of another boat grander, with tall sails and bright banners, its passengers' laughter faint and musical in the distance. But the sound fades quickly, swallowed by the warm silence of your own little craft. You glance at him again, wondering who he is, and why it feels as though you've known him longer than this. His voice interrupts your thought. "You're wondering," he says, not turning to look at you. Your lips part faintly. "Wondering what?" you ask. He finally glances at you over his shoulder, one eyebrow raised just slightly, though his eyes are kind. "Who I am," he answers simply. You hesitate. "And are you going to tell me?" He smiles faintly at that, his gaze returning to the water. "In time," he says. The words settle in the air between you like the faint glow of a lantern, quiet but undeniable. You don't press further. You find yourself leaning back against the cushions, letting your eyes half close as the boat rocks gently beneath you. The scent of salt and something floral jasmine curls around you in soft threads. It occurs to you that you don't feel cold anymore, or lost. You feel held, as though the boat itself cradles you, and the air has curled its fingers through your hair, and even the silence here has made space for you to rest. The man's voice comes again, low, quiet, not quite breaking the spell of the moment. "You're not the first to sit on this bench," he says. Your eyes open, and you watch his back as he stands at the stern. "But," he adds, glancing at you now, "you are the first to look back." You tilt your head faintly, unsure what he means, but he doesn't explain. Instead, he lifts a hand and brushes his fingers lightly along one of the lanterns above his head, making it swing faintly. The light catches his face just right this time, and you see him more clearly, the faint lines at the corner of his eyes, the quiet strength in his jaw. the way his mouth softens just slightly as he watches the water ahead. You wonder not for the first time how long he's been here, and why it feels like he's been waiting for you. The thought surprises you again, and you glance down at your hands, feeling your chest tighten faintly before loosening again. He notices you can tell, even without looking up, but he doesn't say anything. Instead, he shifts his weight and begins walking slowly toward you, the boat hardly rocking under his steps. When he reaches the center of the boat, he stops just before you, looking down. For a long, quiet moment, he studies your face, his eyes tracing over you as though memorizing you for some future he doesn't quite name. Then, at last, he extends a hand. You hesitate only briefly before resting your hand in his. He closes his fingers around yours, warm and certain. "You don't have to understand," he says softly. "Not yet." The boat rocks faintly, but his hand is steady. "All you need to do," he murmurs, "is stay." And though you can feel questions rising in your throat, sharp, clumsy questions about where you are, who he is, what happens next, you don't speak them. Because he's right. For now, it is enough to stay. His thumb brushes lightly over your knuckles before he lets go and sits beside you at last, the fabric of his coat whispering faintly as he settles next to you. You feel the warmth of him beside you, his presence quiet but sure. And ahead, the water seems to open wider, the lanterns parting as though clearing a path meant only for this boat and only for the two of you. You let your gaze drift back to him once more, catching the faintest smile on his lips as he watches the path ahead. For the first time since you opened your eyes on that wooden pier, you find yourself smiling too small, tentative, but real. And as the boat slips further into the glowing dark, you feel the hush of the harbor settle around you again, thick and soft as a promise. You lean back against the cushions and close your eyes briefly, letting the rhythm of the water rock through you. You don't know where you're going yet, but it no longer feels like you're drifting. It feels somehow like you are being carried, and that is enough. For now, time drifts the way the boat does, quietly, without edges. You don't know how long you sit there beneath the soft canopy, the faint glow of the lantern spilling gold and rose across your hands, your hair. The air feels thicker now, warmer, carrying something sweet and unfamiliar in its folds. When you open your eyes again, you realize the harbor has changed. The lanterns are sparser now, no longer crowded close, no longer so bright. They float at wider intervals, like constellations scattered across the water instead of a river of light. The air feels different too, less salt and jasmine, more something else, faintly metallic, faintly warm, like rain on stone in a summer storm. You sit up a little straighter, glancing at him. He notices, of course. "Beyond the harbor," he says softly without turning his head. "Most don't come this far." You follow his gaze. Ahead of you, the water seems darker but not empty. Strange, soft glimmers stir just below the surface now, faint shapes moving under the boat like shadows of forgotten creatures. You lean forward slightly, trying to see, but the water stays elusive, showing just enough to keep you wondering. You can feel it, how this place is different, how it feels alive. He glances at you then, his dark eyes catching yours just for a heartbeat before sliding away again. "You're not most," he says simply. You feel something shift in your chest at that, a quiet, sudden ache you don't quite understand. You turn your gaze back to the water. "How do you know?" you murmur before you can stop yourself. For a while, he doesn't answer. And then, finally, "Because you're still here." The words settle between you like a stone dropped gently into deep water. You don't ask what he means. You just sit there and let the silence hum in the air, watching the lanterns grow fewer and fewer as the boat carries you farther from shore. Now, when you reach out your hand toward the water, you feel not just the cool surface but a faint warmth rising from underneath, like something hidden stirring just below. You draw your hand back and glance at him again. This time he meets your gaze and holds it. You're wondering, he says. You almost laugh softly, breathlessly, because it's true. You say that a lot, you murmur, not quite meeting his eyes this time. He allows himself a faint smile, a quiet, knowing thing before replying. Because you do, he says simply. And then, after another beat, you're wondering what the lanterns are. You nod faintly. His gaze drifts upward, toward one of the lanterns gliding past on the water, this one painted with delicate strokes of cranes and clouds. They're not just light, he says. He shifts his weight slightly, resting his hand on the railing, fingers loose. They're memories, he continues, wishes, pieces of lives that wanted not to be forgotten. You blink at that, looking around you now with new eyes. Each one, he adds softly, belongs to someone who left it behind. You study the nearest lantern, the way its glow trembles faintly, its painted surface softened by the water's embrace. What happens to them, you ask? His expression darkens just slightly, not unkind, but quiet, heavy somehow. Some float forever, he says. Some go out. You swallow, your throat suddenly tight. And some, he adds, his voice lowering just a little more, find someone who remembers. He doesn't look at you when he says it, but you feel it all the same, the quiet weight of his words sinking into you, anchoring something you didn't even realize was drifting inside you. You glance down at your hands. I don't remember, you say softly. He tilts his head faintly at that, as though he's heard it 100 times before. You will, he murmurs, and there's no judgment in it, only certainty. You let out a slow breath, realizing you've been holding it again. The boat rocks faintly as the water begins to change color beneath you, no longer blue, black, and gold, but deeper now, almost green, shot through with threads of faint silver that shimmer and fade just as quickly. The lanterns ahead are fewer still, but brighter, larger somehow. You find yourself leaning forward, drawn to the strange glow just ahead, and then you catch sight of something below the surface. A shape vast and slow gliding silently beneath the boat, its faint outline traced in soft light. You flinch back slightly, instinctively, and he notices, of course he does. He glances down at the water, then back at you. They won't hurt you, he says. And somehow you believe him. Still, your hands tighten faintly on your lap, and you draw your legs closer under the bench. He straightens and moves to stand closer to you, resting a hand lightly on the canopy's wooden post. This is where the harbor ends, he says quietly, almost as if to himself. You glance at him sharply. And beyond, you ask? He finally looks down at you, his expression unreadable for a long moment, though his eyes are gentle still. Beyond, he says at last, is where you begin. You feel your breath catch at that, though you don't know why. He holds your gaze for another beat before turning back to the water. His hand brushes one of the lanterns dangling from the canopy, making it swing faintly, its tassel grazing your shoulder. You came farther than most, he says softly. Why, you murmur, though the word feels more like a thought slipping out than a question. This time, he does not answer. Instead, he lowers himself onto the bench beside you, close enough that you feel the quiet heat of him again, but not so close that he touches you. His gaze is fixed on the horizon now, where the last of the lanterns shimmer faintly before the darkness swallows them. You follow his eyes and feel the faintest pull, something waiting out there in the dark, something just out of reach. And for the first time, you feel a spark of something like fear, but also something like hope. You glance sideways at him. He doesn't look back, but his hand rests on the bench now, palm up between you, not quite reaching for you, not quite letting go. You stare at his hand for a long moment, feeling the hush of the air grow heavier, the water below growing brighter and stranger. And then, slowly, you lay your fingers over his. His hand closes gently around yours, warm and steady. You don't speak, there is nothing to say, You only sit there with him, feeling the boat slip further into the unknown, the faint hush of the harbor fading behind you, the stars above and below shimmering in quiet witness. And though you don't know what waits beyond, you know somehow that you are not alone, that the boat will carry you and he will be here, and that for tonight is enough. The harbor is behind you now. You don't know when exactly it disappeared. The moment was quiet, subtle, as though the world simply changed its mind and let go of what it had been. The last of the lanterns drifts farther and farther away until they look like faint fireflies skimming the surface of memory, and ahead of you nothing but open water. But the water is alive here in a way you've never felt before. Beneath the boat, soft shapes glide slow and vast, their glow shifting from pale green to deep violet as they move. Here and there, faint whispers rise, not words exactly, but impressions, like the sound of someone thinking just below the surface. You tighten your fingers slightly on his hand. He notices, of course, and lets his thumb trace a slow circle against your palm. Almost everyone, he murmurs, turns back before this. His voice is low but steady, as though he's speaking more to himself than to you. But you didn't, he adds after a moment, glancing sideways at you with the faintest suggestion of a smile. You feel your chest tighten faintly, that quiet ache returning, though you still don't understand why. You try to speak, but your voice comes out softer than you intend. I don't remember, you say. His smile doesn't fade, but it doesn't quite reach his eyes. You will, he murmurs, and turns his gaze back to the horizon. The water ahead seems darker still, but it shimmers faintly, a vast stretch of ink scattered with silver and something deeper, stranger, that moves just beneath. You watch as he releases your hand at last and rises to stand at the stern again, his coat catching faintly in the unseen breeze. For a long time he says nothing, letting the hush of the water fill the air between you. Then, at last, his voice comes softer this time, almost reluctant. You were here once before, he says. You blink at that, startled, and sit up straighter beneath the canopy. He doesn't turn around, but you see his shoulders shift slightly. You sat on that bench, he continues, his voice still low, and asked me what lay beyond the harbor. You stare at him now, trying to see more of his face, but he keeps it turned toward the horizon. And I told you, he says, that it depended on whether you were ready to leave. You shake your head faintly, confusion prickling at the edges of your thoughts. I don't remember, you whisper again. This time, his hands tighten faintly on the railing, so small a movement you almost miss it. No, he murmurs, you chose not to. The boat rocks faintly as the water around you grows brighter, faint ripples of violet and gold weaving across the surface. You glance down and see faint shapes moving underneath, larger now, closer, as though drawn to your presence. You begin, but trail off, unsure what words to reach for. He finally turns to face you fully, and for the first time you see the weight in his expression. Not anger, not even sadness exactly, but something deeper, older, carved into him like the patterns in the lanterns that once surrounded you. You asked me to wait, he says. The words sink into you like stones, heavy and soft all at once. Your lips part faintly, but nothing comes out. His gaze drops to the deck then, and for the first time, he looks smaller somehow, not diminished, but human. You said, he continues, you weren't ready, and you stepped off the boat. He breathes in slowly before lifting his gaze back to yours. And I stayed. The hush of the water swells faintly, and you feel heat rising behind your eyes, though you don't understand why. You glance down at your hands, tracing the grain of the wood beneath your fingertips. The boat drifts onward, carrying you deeper into the shimmering dark, and you feel the weight of his words settle into your chest. You shake your head faintly, trying to summon memory, but nothing comes, only the faint sense of something just out of reach, like a dream you almost catch before it slips away. You waited, you say softly, testing the words. I did, he replies. You lift your gaze to him, feeling something quiet and fierce stir inside you. How long, you ask? He exhales slowly, his lips curving into something between a smile and a grimace. I don't count, he says simply. The silence after that feels heavier somehow, not uncomfortable, but full. You study him now, really study him, the faint lines at the corners of his eyes, the quiet strength in the way he stands, the softness in the way he looks at you even now. And you wonder not for the first time why you left. He sees the question in your face before you speak it. You thought there was more to do, he murmurs. More to live for. You swallow at that, feeling something sharp and aching twist low in your chest. Was there, you ask, before you can stop yourself? For a long moment he doesn't answer. Then, quietly, that's not my answer to give. The boat rocks faintly, and the hush of the water swells and falls around you, the faint glimmer below growing brighter now, almost pulsing with quiet light. You watch as one of the shapes beneath the water surfaces briefly, its outline vast and soft, glowing faintly before sinking back into the depths. You glance at him, and he's already watching you again. This time he moves closer, his steps slow, deliberate, the boat hardly moving under his weight. When he reaches you, he crouches slightly so his gaze is level with yours. And when he speaks again, his voice is softer still. You're here now, he says. You hold his gaze, feeling heat rise faintly to your cheeks. Why, you whisper. His lips twitch faintly at that, the ghost of a smile, and he shakes his head once. That, he murmurs, is yours to remember. He stands again then, offering his hand. And though you hesitate, though your fingers tremble faintly, you place your hand in his once more. His grip is steady, warm, and he helps you to your feet, guiding you out from under the canopy to stand at the edge of the deck. The water ahead glows brighter now, almost blinding, as though whatever lies beyond has been waiting too. You feel his presence at your back, quiet and sure, his hand still holding yours as the boat slows slightly, approaching the edge of the familiar. You glance back at him, your lips parting faintly, but before you can speak, he leans just close enough that his breath stirs the hair at your temple. Whatever waits for you, he murmurs, you don't face it alone. You let the words settle into you like warmth, quiet and certain. Ahead, the water parts, and something vast and bright begins to reveal itself, impossible and beautiful and waiting. And though you still don't understand everything, not yet, you no longer feel afraid. Not with his hand in yours. Not here. Not now. The water ahead shines so brightly now it almost hurts to look at a great silken expanse of silver and gold light, shifting and rippling, yet utterly calm. The boat slows, the hush of the water changing timbre, as though you've crossed some invisible line. You can feel it in your chest, a faint hum that wasn't there before, curling through your ribs, settling in your throat. You stand at the edge of the deck, his hand still in yours. And though you've been moving all this time, it's here at this quiet, glowing threshold that you truly feel the journey begin. The air is warmer here, but not heavy. You catch yourself breathing more deeply, your shoulders softening with each inhalation. The scent has changed again too, faintly like rain, and faintly like something you can't quite name but recognize anyway. You glance back at him, and he is watching you, dark eyes steady, quiet as ever. This is it, he murmurs. You swallow against the tightness in your throat. The edge, you whisper back. His mouth curves faintly. The beginning, he corrects gently. The boat rocks slightly beneath you, though the water itself remains eerily still as though it waits, just as he waited, just as you waited before you stepped back onto this deck. You watch as the light ahead shifts, opening like a curtain, and faint shapes begin to emerge beyond it, delicate arches, soft bridges of gold and pearl light that stretch across the water without any visible support. There are no lanterns here. No shadows either. Everything here seems to glow from within the air, the water. Even the faint breeze that stirs your hair feels luminous somehow, humming with quiet promise. You step forward instinctively, drawn toward the nearest arch of light, but the boat doesn't follow. It comes to rest here, at the very edge of the glowing water, and you feel a subtle change in the air, a hush that is somehow deeper than silence. You glance back at him, a question rising in your eyes before you can speak it aloud. He sees it, of course he does. "You're the one who chooses," he says softly, his voice carrying even in the stillness. You blink at him. "What if I don't know how?" He smiles faintly, the kind of smile that feels older than him, older than you, older than this place itself. "You've already chosen," he says. You look down at the water then, at your own faint reflection mingling with the shimmering light beneath you. And slowly, you begin to remember. It isn't clear, not yet, but it's there, a faint pulse of recognition deep in your chest, memories stirring like embers in a long-cooled fire. You see flickers, not images so much as sensations. The smell of this harbor the first time, the feeling of wood beneath your feet, the sound of his voice saying your name, though you can't quite hear the name itself yet. You feel your hand tighten faintly in his without realizing it, and he squeezes back, gentle but certain. When you lift your gaze to him, his expression has softened, but his eyes remain steady. "You don't have to go yet," he murmurs. You take a slow breath, feeling the hush of this place wrap around you. "But you waited," you say softly. And though it's not quite a question, he answers anyway. "I'll wait again," he says simply. The quiet certainty in his voice settles through you like warmth, untying a knot you hadn't noticed inside you until now. You glance again at the glowing arches that rise in the distance, delicate and impossible, beckoning, and then back at him. "What happens," you ask softly, "if I cross?" For a long moment he says nothing, his gaze distant, his shoulders faintly tense. And then almost reluctantly he speaks. "You find what you left behind," he says. Your brow furrows slightly. "And what if I don't want to find it?" He exhales, and a faint shadow crosses his expression. "Then you come back here," he says. He meets your gaze fully now, and you feel it again, that quiet, unshakable presence, as though no matter what you choose, he'll be here. Or, he adds quietly, you don't. The words hang between you like the faint shimmer in the air, neither heavy nor light. You lower your gaze to the deck, studying the faint grain of the wood beneath your feet. "I'm afraid," you admit, the words barely louder than a breath. He doesn't flinch at that, doesn't tighten his grip or soften his tone. "You should be," he says simply. You glance up at him, startled, but his gaze remains steady, kind but unflinching. "And?" you ask after a moment. "And it's yours to do anyway," he murmurs. You let out a shaky laugh, surprised by the sound of it here, and shake your head faintly. "You're not making this easy," you say. For the first time tonight, his smile deepens into something almost playful but still quiet. "No," he agrees softly. Then, after a beat, "But I'll make it worth it." You freeze at that, feeling the words sink into you, warm and sharp all at once. Your breath catches, and you look away, feeling heat rise faintly to your cheeks. He doesn't press. Instead, he releases your hand at last and steps back, giving you space to choose. You stand at the edge of the deck now, the water before you glowing brighter than ever, the faint bridges of light arching gracefully into the distance. Somewhere beyond them, you feel something waiting, something you've known and forgotten, something that belongs to you, even if you don't yet remember how. You take another slow breath, feeling the hush of the place press gently against your back, and then softly you hear him speak again. "Look at me," he says. You do, and when you meet his gaze, you feel something you hadn't expected, not fear, not grief, not even longing anymore, but love. Not sudden, not loud, just there, the kind that has been waiting all along, quiet and certain, like the boat, like him. Your lips part faintly, though you don't speak. You just hold his gaze and feel the choice settle quietly into place inside you. You don't step forward yet. You don't step back either. You simply stand here with him on the threshold of what waits, letting the quiet between you deepen into something almost sacred. And he watches you steady and patient, as though he has all the time in the world, which somehow you know he does. For a long time you stand at the edge of the deck, the hush of the glowing water before you, his quiet presence behind you. The bridges of light ahead rise and curve impossibly high into the air, arcing across the water like ribbons of moonlight spun into shape. Beneath them, the glowing surface shifts and ripples as though alive, though no wind stirs it. You can feel it waiting. You can feel him waiting too, not pressuring, not pulling, just steady, as though your choice is the only clock in this place, and he already knows how it ends. When you finally draw in a deep breath and lift your foot to step off the boat, your whole body feels heavier and lighter at once. The deck gives one soft groan under your weight, the wood warm beneath your bare feet. And then you step forward. The water meets you like silk, not wet, not cold, but soft and warm, glowing faintly as though it remembers your shape. It holds you. You take another step, and another, and the glow grows stronger, rising up around your ankles, your knees, until you realize it isn't water at all anymore, but something finer, lighter, like a river of light woven thin enough to walk upon. You glance back once, almost instinctively, and he is already there, standing at the edge of the boat, his hand resting on the railing, his dark eyes on you steady and certain, his expression unreadable but somehow full. When your gaze meets his, he steps forward too. No hesitation. The waterlight parts slightly around his legs, as though making way for him, but he doesn't seem to notice. He stops just behind you, close enough that you can feel the quiet heat of him at your back, though he still doesn't touch you. You feel your breath catch, but you don't turn away. You take another step, and then another. The first of the bridges looms ahead now, its delicate arches shimmering faintly as though alive, faint motes of light drifting down from it like snow that never falls. You tilt your head back, watching how impossibly high it reaches. He comes to stand beside you now, matching your pace, his coat brushing faintly against your arm. When he speaks, his voice is softer than you expect. They say, he murmurs, that the first bridge shows you what you already know. You glance at him out of the corner of your eye. And the others? For a moment he says nothing, just looks up at the bridge with you, his hands loose at his sides. They show you what you forgot, he says at last. You swallow against the tightness in your throat. And what if I don't want to remember, you whisper. His lips curve faintly, not quite a smile, not quite sadness. You wouldn't be here, he says gently, if you didn't. The hush of the air around you grows thicker now, faint threads of gold drifting between your fingers, catching in your hair. You raise a hand instinctively, brushing a strand of light from your cheek, and the faintest warmth lingers where it touched you, soft and strange. He watches you without speaking, his gaze following the movement of your fingers. And though he doesn't say it, you can feel the words in the quiet. You're already remembering. The bridge hums faintly as you approach, the sound low and musical, not quite notes, not quite words. And as you place your foot on its first step, a faint warmth coils through you, soft but insistent. You pause, feeling the sensation spread through your ribs, your hands, even your throat like something you once carried and forgot. You tighten your fingers slightly at your sides, your breath hitching faintly as the memory rises, still blurry but closer now. You glance at him, and he is already watching you. And in his eyes you see it, the same quiet ache, the same knowing. He doesn't offer his hand this time. But when you step onto the bridge fully, he follows, his coat trailing faintly behind him as though the light itself pulls at it. The surface beneath your feet feels warmer than the water light before, firmer somehow, though it shimmers faintly with each step. And as you walk higher, the hush below fades, replaced by a faint chorus, soft and distant, voices you almost recognize, calling not quite your name but something like it. You close your eyes for a breath, letting the sound wash over you. And just like that, the memory sharpens. You remember the first time you stood here. You remember the choice you couldn't make. The faint smell of salt and flowers, the warmth of his hand in yours, and the way you let go. Your eyes open slowly, your chest tightening faintly as the pieces slot into place. You stop walking, and he stops beside you, close enough now that you can feel the faint brush of his sleeve against yours. You turn to him then, really looking at him, and for the first time you see it clearly, the weight of waiting carved into the lines around his eyes, the quiet hope that never left them. "I left you," you whisper. "It isn't a question. It isn't an apology. Just the truth, laid bare between you." His lips curve faintly, but his eyes stay steady. "You did," he says softly. Your throat tightens, and you stayed. He studies your face for a long moment before he nods once slow, deliberate. "I did," he says. The faint glow around you thickens, soft threads of light drifting between you like breath. You feel your hand lift without quite meaning to, fingers reaching toward his. This time he meets you halfway. His hand is warm, certain, and when his fingers curl around yours, the quiet ache in your chest loosens just a little. For a moment you simply stand there on the bridge, the hush of the strange waters below, the impossible arches rising above you, his hand anchoring you in this soft, shimmering now. You don't speak, and neither does he. You just stand here and let the memory settle between you like light pooling in the hollow of your palm. When you finally start walking again, his hand remains in yours. The first bridge arches higher, and you feel the faint hum of it in your chest now, like something waking up inside you, something you'd buried. And as the light ahead grows brighter, you glance sideways at him. His eyes meet yours, steady and kind. And though he doesn't say it aloud, you feel the words all the same, warm and certain and quiet. This time, you don't have to cross it alone. The bridge carries you upward, higher than you thought it could, arching gently over the shimmering water below. Your hand stays in his warm and steady, and though you can feel your pulse quicken, it isn't fear this time. It's recognition. You walk slowly, the faint glow of the bridge pulsing gently beneath your bare feet. Each step releases a soft warmth that climbs your legs and settles in your chest, like the memory of being held. The air changes here. It's lighter somehow, fragrant with something that reminds you of rain and blossoms and something older you can't quite name. The faint chorus you heard before grows clearer, no longer just whispers, but something closer to music now, though still wordless. When you glance up, the arches of light seem to stretch even farther than before, disappearing into a soft gold haze. And beyond that haze, you catch your first glimpse of what waits. A vast plain of soft, shifting light. It seems to go on forever, the ground faintly rippling, dotted with low, delicate trees whose branches shimmer like glass, their leaves drifting down slowly in curls of faint flame and fading before they touch the ground. It's impossible and quiet and beautiful in a way that makes your chest ache. You slow without realizing it, and he slows with you. You stop at the highest point of the bridge and look down at the luminous lands below. For a long moment, neither of you speaks. Then softly he breaks the silence. Does it feel familiar yet? You glance at him, startled, and see that his eyes are already waiting on yours. You hesitate and then, reluctantly, nod. "I think so," you murmur. His lips curve faintly, not quite a smile, but something warmer. "That's because you've been here before," he says quietly. Your breath catches faintly at that. "I don't," you begin, but trail off, unsure what words to reach for. You don't remember, he finishes for you. You meet his gaze again and find no reproach in it, only quiet certainty. You will, he says. You take a slow breath and look back at the lands below. The bridge slopes downward now, its golden light fading gradually into the silver shimmer of the plain. You feel your hand tighten in his, and this time he squeezes back. Together you begin to descend. The ground meets your feet with a softness you don't expect. Not grass, not earth, but something in between. The faint ripples beneath you shift and part, as though accommodating your presence, and the air here feels thicker with quiet warmth. Every step you take leaves behind a faint trail of light that lingers just long enough to see before fading. He walks at your side, his dark coat trailing behind him, the light catching faintly at the edges of his hair. The glass-like trees ahead sway gently, though no breeze stirs them, their branches chiming faintly with every movement. You reach out instinctively to touch one as you pass, and the moment your fingers brush it, you feel something rush through you, a warmth, a flicker of memory, a quiet laugh, a hand brushing yours, the smell of salt and night flowers. You snatch your hand back, startled. He notices, of course, and watches you without saying anything, letting you catch your breath. You glance at him after a long moment, your voice quieter than you intend. I was here, you whisper. It isn't a question. He nods once. You were. You walk in silence for a while, the faint music in the air deepening slightly the farther you go. And then when the next tree's branches chime faintly, you find yourself asking, Who was I? He doesn't answer right away. Instead, he slows, then stops beside you, turning to face you fully. The hush around you deepens, the faint ripples on the ground stilling as though even this place is listening. You were, he begins, then pauses, his gaze lowering briefly. You were the one who asked me to wait, he says at last. The words sink into you like warmth and ache all at once. You swallow, unable to look away from him. And you did, you say softly. He meets your eyes again, and there is no hesitation in his voice when he answers. I did. For a long, quiet moment you simply stand there, feeling the weight of his words settle into the hush between you. The faint chorus in the distance softens, not stopping, but lowering, as though giving this moment space. You feel your throat tighten. I didn't come back, you whisper. He exhales slowly, but his expression doesn't change. No, he says gently, not then. You lower your gaze to the faintly glowing ground. Why? You ask softly. It's more to yourself than to him, but he answers anyway. Because you thought you had more to live, he says. And did I? You murmur, glancing up at him again. His eyes soften, but he doesn't look away. That, he says quietly, is yours to know, not mine. You stand there for a long moment, your hand still in his, the hush of the shimmering plain pressing gently around you. Then slowly he lifts his free hand and lets his fingers graze your cheek. His touch is light, but it sends a quiet warmth curling through you. You came back, he murmurs, and though you don't fully understand yet, you know he's right. You glance past him at the vast plain ahead, at the quiet trees, the faint arches in the far distance, the rippling light waiting like a promise. And something in you stirs faint and uncertain, but there, hope. You look back at him, and for the first time, you let yourself ask the question you've been holding. Will you walk with me? He doesn't smile, not exactly, but his fingers tighten faintly on yours. There's nowhere else I'd rather be, he says simply. And with that, you step forward together, deeper into the lands beyond the first bridge, the hush of the plain curling around you like a quiet welcome. For the first time, you don't feel like a visitor. You feel like someone returning, and his hand in yours feels less like a guide now, and more like someone walking home at your side. You walk side by side across the plain of light, your hand still in his. The ground beneath you glows faintly with every step, soft and warm, leaving quiet trails of silver and gold that fade slowly behind you. Around you, the strange trees sway, their glass-like branches chiming softly with every shift. The faint chorus you heard before has grown into something fuller now, not quite voices, not quite music, but something in between, something you feel more than hear. You glance at him. His gaze is ahead, steady, but you notice the way his thumb strokes faintly over your knuckles, almost absently, as though reassuring himself that you're still here. For a long time, neither of you speaks. It's enough, for a while, to simply walk the hush of the plain wrapping itself around you like a soft cloak, the air fragrant with something you almost recognize. When you finally break the silence, your voice feels small against the vast quiet. What's waiting out there? His eyes flick to yours, then back to the horizon. That depends, he says softly. On what? You ask. On what you came back to find, he answers. You swallow, glancing away, and tighten your grip on his hand. He doesn't say more. And yet, with every step, the memories come closer, faint flickers at first, the way the air smelled the first time you were here, the sound of your own voice saying goodbye, the feeling of wood under your bare feet as you stepped off the boat. And his hand, always his hand warm and steady, waiting even when you let it go. Your chest tightens at the memory, and you let out a slow, shaky breath. He notices, of course, and gives your fingers the faintest squeeze, though he doesn't look at you. Up ahead, the plain opens into a wide circle, a kind of clearing marked by a ring of taller trees, their branches arching overhead into a delicate canopy of shimmering glass and gold. The faint chorus grows louder here, though still soft, still reverent, and in the center of the circle is a single pool of water, clear and still, yet glowing from within. You stop at the edge of the circle, staring at it. It feels important in a way you can't yet name. He stops beside you, his gaze also fixed on the pool. This is the heart, he murmurs. You look at him. The heart of what? He meets your eyes. Of everything you left behind. You let the words sink into the quiet between you, heavy and soft all at once. Your feet carry you closer to the pool, almost without thinking. The surface is so still it seems solid at first, but as you kneel at the edge, the faintest ripple shivers across it, and a strange warmth rises to meet your skin. You stare down. At first you see nothing but light, soft and endless. Then slowly shapes begin to emerge. Not just shapes. Memories. You see yourself here, younger somehow, standing at the edge of the pool, your reflection almost unrecognizable in its brightness. You see him beside you, his hand in yours, and you hear your own voice, quiet but certain. I can't stay. Your chest tightens. The reflection ripples faintly, and you watch yourself step back, releasing his hand. You see the way his fingers curled faintly as you let go, though his expression didn't change. And then you watch yourself turn and walk away, back toward the bridge, back toward the boat, back toward whatever life was still waiting for you beyond the harbor. The memory fades. The surface stills, and you're left staring at your own face here and now, eyes wide, breath caught in your throat. You sit back on your heels, trembling faintly. He's still there, standing behind you, watching quietly. After a moment, you lift your gaze to him. I left you, you whisper. He nods, once. You did. Your chest feels too tight now. Why did you wait? His eyes soften, and for the first time since you stepped onto the boat, you see the faintest crack in his calm, a quiet ache flickering at the corner of his mouth before it smooths away. Because you asked me to, he says simply. You feel heat prick at your eyes, and you look back down at the pool. The faint music above you seems to swell, soft and warm and impossible. And then you feel his hand on your shoulder, light but steady. You came back, he murmurs. You glance up at him, your voice barely louder than a breath. I don't know if I deserve it. His lips curve faintly, not quite a smile, but something close. That's not how this place works, he says. You study his face, the quiet patience in his eyes, the warmth still waiting there, and you wonder how long he stood on that boat, how long he waited in the hush of the harbor for you to return. I was afraid, you say at last. I know, he replies. And you stayed anyway, you add softly. His hand tightens faintly on your shoulder. I told you, he says gently, I'll wait as long as it takes. The ache in your chest loosens then just a little, and you let your eyes drift closed, letting the warmth of this place settle around you. When you open them again, he's crouched beside you now, closer than before. His hand finds yours again, steady and sure. What happens if I step in, you ask? His thumb traces the back of your hand slowly. You find the rest of yourself, he murmurs. You glance back at the water, the surface shimmering faintly, your reflection waiting patient, familiar, whole. And what happens if I don't? He doesn't flinch. Then we walk, he says quietly. You look back at him, startled. Walk? He straightens slightly, still holding your hand. There are other paths, he says. You furrow your brow faintly. Which is better? His mouth curves faintly at that. Whichever one you take, he answers softly. You let the quiet stretch between you again. And then after a long moment you turn your gaze back to the pool. Your fingers tighten around his. And though your voice shakes, you finally say, "Stay with me?" This time, his smile reaches his eyes. "Always," he says. You turn back to the shimmering surface, your reflection waiting, the faint chorus rising around you like breath. You don't know what you'll see, what you'll feel, what you'll remember when you step in, only that he'll be there, steady and certain, waiting at your side. And for the first time, you feel ready. You close your eyes and let yourself lean forward. You kneel at the edge of the pool, its surface shimmering with soft golden light. Your reflection stares back at you familiar, but not quite. The edges blur and shift, as though it knows something you don't yet. His hand is still in yours, warm and steady, his presence close behind you, quiet but certain. The faint chorus above grows louder here, not intrusive, not demanding, but full, as though this place itself is holding its breath for you. You glance back at him once more. He meets your gaze without hesitation, his dark eyes steady. "Are you sure?" you ask softly. His lips curve faintly. "I'm not the one who needs to be," he says gently. You look down at the pool again, your fingers tightening faintly around his. And then, because you can't not, you lean forward and step in. The water isn't cold. It's warm, impossibly warm, curling around your ankles like silk and light, sinking through you instead of clinging to your skin. You take another step, and another. The pool deepens faster than you expect, but you don't feel unsteady. If anything, it feels like the water is holding you upright, carrying you into itself. When it reaches your waist, the faint chorus above swells. You glance back once more, instinct, habit, and he is still there, still standing at the edge, watching. You hesitate, but then slowly he lifts his hand and lays it flat over his heart. And you understand. You turn back, take one more breath, and sink fully beneath the surface. The world goes silent. For a moment there's nothing but the warmth curling around you and the faint shimmer of light threading through your fingers. Then slowly shapes begin to appear. At first they are only shadows, faint outlines gliding past like fish in some deep current. But as your eyes adjust, or maybe as your memory begins to wake, they sharpen. You see yourself standing on the pier again, the harbor behind you, the boat waiting at the end of the dock. But this time you see what you couldn't before, the fear in your own eyes, the quiet ache in his as he waited at the bow. You see yourself turn away, see how he flinched when you let go of his hand, though his expression didn't change. You see the years or whatever passed for years here flicker by in soft vignettes. The boat waiting, him waiting, the harbor growing quiet around him, the lanterns drifting farther out, fewer and fewer, until even they seemed to give up. But he never left. And you see yourself in another place, another life looking over your shoulder now and then, feeling the faint pull in your chest but never quite daring to follow it. You reach out instinctively, trying to touch the memory, and for the first time it touches you back. Warmth rushes through your chest, and you feel the sharp, quiet ache of recognition. You did leave him, but he stayed anyway. You press your palms to the shimmering current around you and let yourself sink deeper. More shapes emerge now, not just memories of him, but of you. Not just who you were here, but who you were after. You see yourself standing in crowded rooms but feeling alone. You see yourself staring at quiet seasides, waiting for something you didn't understand. You see yourself waking at dawn, walking streets half asleep, your hand always curling faintly as though reaching for something that wasn't there. And you see over and over his face in flashes, in dreams, in reflections, in strangers who never stayed. You see the moment, the final moment when you turned your head one last time, felt the quiet call of the harbor, and decided not to ignore it anymore. You see yourself standing on the pier once again, barefoot, the smell of salt and night flowers in the air. You see him rise from the bow, his gaze finding yours instantly, and you feel the relief in your chest, sharp and sweet and quiet all at once, when you finally step back onto that boat. You let out a breath you didn't know you were holding, and the memory dissolves into soft light. When you open your eyes, the water has grown brighter around you, almost too bright now, but not harsh. The chorus has changed too, no longer distant, no longer wordless. It's saying something now, not in words you recognize, but in meaning you somehow understand. Welcome. You belong here. You rise slowly, your feet finding the bottom of the pool again, the water draining from your shoulders, your hair, your lashes, though you never feel wet. When you step back onto the edge of the circle, the hush of the plane greets you like an embrace. And he is there, waiting as always. He studies you silently, his gaze sweeping over your face, searching. When your eyes finally meet his, you see the faintest flicker of something you've never seen before, not quite surprise, but close. And then his expression softens into quiet certainty. You remember, he says. You nod. I do, you whisper. The words feel heavy and light all at once, like they belong here, like they belong to you all along. He takes a step closer, his hand lifting slightly but not yet reaching for you. What did you see? He asks softly. You hesitate, then smile faintly. You say. That makes his lips twitch the ghost of a real smile now, though his eyes glimmer faintly as though he's holding back more than he lets show. He closes the space between you then, his hand brushing lightly over yours before he curls his fingers around it again. You're here now, he murmurs. You tighten your grip on his hand, feeling the quiet hum of the place settle in your chest. I am, you say. The faint chorus swells above you, warm and sweet, like the sound of stars exhaling. For the first time, the hush of the shimmering plain doesn't feel like something to walk through or leave. It feels like home. And standing here, with his hand in yours, you realize that it was never the place you were waiting for. It was him. It was always him. And he, quiet and steady and impossibly patient, waited for you to remember. You close your eyes, letting the warmth of this place and of him settle through you like breath. And when you open them again, the horizon beyond the circle glows brighter, not just light now, but color, shifting and beckoning. You glance at him, and he at last smiles fully, the quiet ache gone from his face. Shall we? He asks. You squeeze his hand. Yes, you say. And together you step forward, deeper into the heart of the shimmering plain toward whatever waits, certain now of who you are and who you are to each other. You walk forward, his hand warm in yours, the hush of the plain deepening as though it's leaning closer, listening. Behind you, the pool glows faintly, but you no longer feel its pull. Whatever it held for you, you've taken it with you now, and the circle of trees hums softly like quiet approval. The horizon ahead has changed. What was once only light is now alive with color not harsh, not blinding, but soft and layered, shifting like silk caught in a breeze, gold and rose, green and violet, colors you don't even have names for. The faint chorus above seems to sing a little louder here, no longer hesitant, no longer distant, though it still sounds like something you feel more than hear, threading through your chest with each step you take. You glance at him. He's watching the path ahead, but you can see it in the line of his shoulders, the faint tilt of his head. Something in him has eased since you stepped into the pool. You tighten your fingers around his hand, and he glances at you then, his mouth curving faintly at the corner. For a while you walk in silence, letting the hush and color and warmth of the plain carry you forward. And then softly you speak. This place, it feels alive. His gaze lingers on the horizon a moment longer before it slides back to yours. It is, he says quietly. You tilt your head. It remembers, he adds. You let the words settle in the air between you. Remembers what? You murmur. He looks at you then, his expression soft but steady. Us, he says simply. You feel the breath catch faintly in your throat. Even when I forgot? You ask, almost a whisper. He holds your gaze, his thumb brushing lightly over your knuckles. Especially then, he says. You let out a quiet laugh, surprised by the sound of it here, in this vast hush, and shake your head faintly. This place, is it? You pause, searching for the right word. Yours? You finish softly. He tilts his head at that, considering you. No, he murmurs after a moment. Ours. You feel the warmth of the words settle into you, low and certain. Ahead, the plain begins to shift. The soft ripples of light beneath your feet start to draw into patterns, faint and curling, like delicate script written in a language you almost understand. You slow, watching the shapes spread out before you with each step, and realize they move with you. Wherever you step, the patterns bloom faintly around your feet, fading only when you move on. You glance up at him, and his mouth curves faintly, almost amused at your surprise. It follows, he explains. You furrow your brow faintly. What does? His gaze drops briefly to the glowing patterns at your feet. The memory of how you walked away, he says. You flinch faintly at that, but he only shakes his head once, gently. And now, he adds, the memory of how you came back. The hush of the plain hums louder then, as though agreeing. You let your gaze fall back to the path ahead, watching the faint shapes continue to curl and bloom with each step. Does it always look like this? You ask quietly. He takes a breath, glancing at the horizon. No, he says. You glance at him, waiting. It looks different for everyone, he explains. For me it was. He trails off, his eyes softening faintly at some memory you can't quite see. You tilt your head. What was it for you? You ask. He hesitates, then looks at you fully, his lips curving faintly into something smaller than a smile, but deeper somehow. You, he says. The words stop you in your tracks, and you feel the warmth of them settle through you like light sinking into water. You stare at him, unsure what to say, but he only gives your hand another gentle squeeze, then glances forward again, urging you onward. You walk on, the patterns beneath your feet shifting now into something more familiar, faint outlines of lanterns, of the little boat, of the pier where it all began. You pause when you see them, letting your fingers brush across the faint glow where the boat's shape curls into the plain. You waited there, you murmur. He stops beside you, his gaze soft on the faint image at your feet. I did, he says. And I, you begin, but trail off, feeling your throat tighten. He glances at you then, his expression gentle but steady. You came back, he says softly. You nod faintly, though you still can't quite find your voice. The hush of the plain grows thicker now, the colors around you deepening into something almost tangible, warm and quiet, but alive with movement just at the edges of your sight. You keep walking, and as you do, you notice the faint glimmer of something ahead, a kind of gateway, its edges shimmering like molten gold, its center soft with light and shadow. It feels final. Not an ending, but something you know you can't step through without leaving something behind. You slow, staring at it. He comes to stand beside you, his hand still holding yours. You glance at him, searching his face. He meets your gaze steadily, waiting. This is where You stop, unsure how to finish the thought. He tilts his head slightly. This is where you choose, he says quietly. You swallow, feeling your fingers tighten faintly around his. What happens if I step through? You ask softly. He's silent for a moment, his thumb tracing over your knuckles. You go on, he says simply. You look back at the shimmering gateway. And if I don't? He glances at the faint glow beneath your feet, then back to you. Then we walk, he says. You study his face for a long moment, the patience in it, the quiet ache, the certainty. You'd stay, you whisper. His answer comes without hesitation. I'd stay. Your breath hitches at that, though you can feel the truth of it in his gaze, in the steady warmth of his hand in yours. For a long time you just stand there, letting the quiet of the plain and the soft hum of the chorus fill the space around you. You feel the weight of your choices pressing gently but insistently against you, but for the first time, it doesn't feel like something to fear. It feels like something you can face. Because he's here. Because he's always been here. You take another step closer to the gateway, feeling the hush of the plain rise around you like breath. And though you don't yet know what you'll choose, you know this much. You are no longer the woman who turned away. You are no longer the woman who forgot. You are here, and he, quiet and steady and impossibly patient, is still at your side. You glance at him one last time before you speak. Whatever I choose, you say softly, you'll still be here? His lips curve faintly, not quite a smile, but something brighter. Always, he says. And together you stand at the threshold of what waits, the plain humming beneath your feet, the hush of this place leaning close, listening, ready. You stand with him at the edge of the gateway, its light spilling softly over your feet, rising and falling like the breath of some great sleeping creature. The hush of the plain gathers close, now no longer vast and distant, but intimate, curling around you like hands, like memory. The faint chorus overhead softens again, no longer swelling but circling, a quiet thread of sound that seems to speak just to you. The gateway before you pulses faintly, its edges molten gold, its center a deep, soft glow that seems to shift with every breath you take. And though you still don't know what lies beyond it, you know somehow that once you step through, you cannot come back the same. You take a slow breath and glance at him. He is watching you, steady as ever, his hand still in yours. His expression is quiet, unreadable but not empty. You can see the faintest light in his eyes now, softer than the glow of the plain itself, waiting and patient and unafraid. For a long moment you simply look at him, feeling the weight of everything that's passed between you settle into your chest. And then you speak. Is this where you stop? Your voice is soft, barely more than a breath. He doesn't flinch. Instead, he tilts his head faintly, studying you with that same quiet calm. That's not up to me, he says gently. You furrow your brow at that. What do you mean? His thumb brushes slowly over the back of your hand. You choose what happens next, he says. You glance back at the gateway, at the way its light spills across the ground, the way it seems to reach out for you even as it waits. And if I go through, you ask softly. He breathes in slowly before answering. Then you see what's waiting, he says. You let the words settle, watching the light shift and shimmer at the threshold. And if I stay? He's quiet for a long moment. And then, very softly, he says, then we keep walking. The hush of the plain hums louder now, as though agreeing. You look down at the faint patterns beneath your feet, at the delicate curves of light that still trace your steps, and you feel something sharp and sweet rise in your chest. You could go through. You could see what waits beyond. But even now, with the gateway so close, you can feel its warmth on your skin. You find your gaze drawn not to it, but to him, the man who waited, the man who stayed, the man who met you here again, quiet and steady, and asked nothing of you but to choose. You let out a quiet laugh, soft and a little broken, and shake your head faintly. I don't deserve this, you whisper. His eyes soften, though his grip on your hand doesn't falter. That's not how this place works, he murmurs. You swallow, feeling the weight of his words settle through you like light sinking into water. And then softly you take a step closer to the gateway. The hush of the plain rises as you do, the faint chorus overhead swelling just enough to make your chest tighten. The light here is brighter now, warm and alive, almost alive enough to feel like it's breathing with you. You stand just before it, the golden rose glow curling around your fingers, your hair, your face. It would be so easy to step through, but as you raise your foot, something in you falters. You glance back at him, and he, quiet, steady, simply watches you, waiting. You take another breath, feeling the hush of the plain hum through your ribs, and then you lower your foot again. He tilts his head faintly at that, his lips curving into the faintest shadow of a smile. Not yet? He asks softly. You shake your head, though your fingers tighten faintly around his. Not yet, you say. You turn back to him fully, letting the light of the gateway wash over both of you as you study his face, the lines of patience, the quiet strength, the warmth waiting there for you even now. And you realize as you stand here at the edge of everything that you never came here to cross. You came here to remember. You came here to find him. And you did. You let out a long breath, the knot in your chest loosening at last, and you feel your lips curve faintly into something that almost feels like peace. You reach up with your free hand and brush your fingers lightly along his cheek. The faintest surprise flickers across his face before his eyes soften, and he leans just barely into your touch. I thought I came here for the gateway, you murmur. He doesn't speak, but the look in his eyes says everything. You let your hand fall back to his and tighten your grip, and then you take a deliberate step back, away from the threshold. The hush of the plain seems to sigh, the faint chorus softening into something low and sweet. You glance up at him again. His expression hasn't changed, steady and quiet, but you see the faint glimmer in his eyes now, warmer than before. Where do we go? You ask softly. He exhales slowly, his lips curving faintly at the corners. Wherever you like, he says. You smile faintly at that, the sound of it strange and soft in the hush of the plain. And then, hand still in his, you turn fully away from the shimmering gateway. The path behind you glows faintly now, not fading, not gone, but quieter, waiting for some other time. You and he walk together back into the heart of the plain, the soft patterns of light blooming beneath your feet once more, the trees ahead swaying faintly as though greeting you. The chorus above shifts into something almost playful, light and warm and full of quiet welcome. You glance sideways at him as you walk, feeling the faint ache in your chest replaced by something steadier, fuller. And though he doesn't look at you right away, you see the faintest smile curve his lips as though he already knows what you're thinking. You squeeze his hand, and he squeezes back. Behind you, the gateway still glows, soft and patient, but you no longer feel its pull. For now here, with him is enough. The hush of the plain rises around you like a promise, the patterns beneath your feet brightening just slightly with each step you take. And as you walk deeper into the shimmering light together, you realize you are no longer afraid, not of what you left behind, not of what waits ahead, not of the choice you made. You are here, and so is he. And that at last feels like everything you came for. You walk together, hand in hand, deeper into the shimmering plain. The gateway fades quietly behind you, its glow softening until it becomes just another curve of light on the horizon. And ahead of you, the plain unfolds like silk, quiet and warm, its glass-like trees leaning toward you as though welcoming you home. You don't know how far you walk, but you don't count the steps. You don't need to, because each one feels easier now, lighter somehow, not because the path has changed, but because you have. His hand stays in yours the entire time, steady, unhurried, his thumb tracing slow circles over your knuckles every so often, as though reminding you that he's still here. The hush of the plain gathers closer now, no longer vast and echoing, but soft and intimate, curling around you like quiet arms. Above you, the faint chorus has settled into something low and sweet, no longer rising but simply being a gentle hum that seems to match your breath. And then just as you're beginning to wonder if the path has no end at all, you see it. Ahead, nestled among the trees, is a small hollow of light. Not grand, not imposing, just quiet, waiting. As you draw closer, you see that the hollow is ringed with lanterns, hundreds of them, glowing faintly, their paper soft and warm as though lit from within by memory itself. They hang from the branches overhead, float lazily above the ground, drift softly on a still pool at the center of the hollow. The air here smells faintly of salt and jasmine again, and your chest tightens with the quiet, sharp sweetness of recognition. You stop at the edge of the hollow, staring. He stops beside you, watching your face. And when you glance up at him, he smiles faintly, a real smile this time, soft and sure. You know where we are, he murmurs. You swallow, your throat suddenly tight, and nod. The place where the lanterns rest, you whisper. He studies you for a long moment before replying. The place where you rest, he says gently. Your lips part faintly at that, but no words come. Instead, you let him guide you forward, his hand warm around yours until you stand together at the edge of the little pool. You watch the lanterns drift across its surface, each one painted with delicate, familiar shapes, blossoms, birds, stars, and you realize these are not just any lanterns. They are yours. Each one holds a memory, a moment, a breath you thought you'd lost. And here at last they have come to wait for you. You lower yourself to sit on the soft ground beside the pool, and he sits with you, his shoulder just brushing yours. For a while you simply sit in silence, watching the lanterns sway and glow, feeling the hush of the place settle around you like a gentle tide. And then quietly you speak. Why did you wait so long? Your voice is soft, but it doesn't waver. He tilts his head, looking at you with those steady, dark eyes. Because you asked me to, he says simply. You smile faintly at that small and a little sad and shake your head. And if I hadn't, you murmur. He exhales slowly, his gaze dropping briefly to the water before finding yours again. I would have stayed anyway, he says. The words settle into the quiet, warm and certain, and you feel them sink into you like light sinking into deep water. You glance at him, really looking at him now, at the quiet lines of his face, at the faint glimmer in his eyes that wasn't there before, and something in your chest loosens. You never forgot me, you say softly. He shakes his head, the faintest smile tugging at his lips. Not once, he murmurs. Your throat tightens, and you look back at the lanterns, letting their glow blur your vision for a moment. You deserve better, you whisper. His hand finds yours again, steady and warm. I only ever wanted you to come back, he says. You let your eyes close briefly, letting the words settle through you. And when you open them again, the hollow feels even softer, even warmer, as though it, too, has been waiting for you all this time. He shifts slightly, turning to face you fully. "What now?" he asks, his voice low. You look at him, startled, and then laugh softly, though the sound comes out more like a breath. "I thought you'd tell me," you say. His mouth curves faintly, and he shakes his head. "You choose," he reminds you. You glance back at the pool, at the faint glow of the lanterns drifting lazily across its surface. And you feel it then, not fear, not doubt, but something quieter, more certain. You reach for his hand with both of yours now, holding it tightly between your palms. "I choose to stay," you say. The hush of the hollow seems to deepen at that, not heavier, just fuller, warmer, as though the place itself approves. You see it in his face too, the way the quiet tension at the corner of his mouth softens, the way his eyes warm as he looks at you. "Then stay," he murmurs. And you do. You lean into him, resting your head against his shoulder, feeling his arm slide around you without hesitation. The faint chorus above hums low and sweet now, the lanterns casting their gentle glow over you both. For the first time in longer than you can remember, you feel still. You feel home. You watch the lanterns for a while longer, letting the hush of the hollow wrap around you like a soft promise. And though you don't yet know how long you'll sit here or what waits beyond the hollow, you know this much. You are here, and so is he. And that finally is enough. You tilt your head up to look at him, and he glances down at you, his lips curving into the faintest, warmest smile. You smile back, and though you don't say it aloud, he seems to hear it anyway. "Thank you for waiting." His thumb brushes lightly over your hand, and he leans just slightly closer. "Always," he murmurs. You let your eyes drift closed then, letting the hush of the lanterns and the warmth of him and the quiet of this place carry you at last into the stillness you've been searching for all along. And there where the lanterns rest, you finally do.